Today we're going to talk about logical flow in a piece of code. First up, we have the if statement. The if statement presents us with a question, and if the answer to that question is true, then another block of code will run. If the answer is false, nothing will happen. So for example, we have the if keyword to start this logic gate. Then inside the parentheses, we have the question that we're trying to figure out whether it's true or false, a colon, an indentation here, and then our statement that will run if the answer to this question is true. So let's see what happens when I ask if 4 is bigger than 6. And when I run the code, nothing is printed out as expected. If I swap this sign and ask if 4 is smaller than 6, now you can see that the code is printing success. Now let's try to make this question a bit more complicated and involve the user's input. Let's ask if what they are typing is equal to 1. So as we have it, I'm assigning to this variable that I decided to name a number the answer to my input function, and I will prompt the user to choose either 0 or 1, and then I will make this answer, which comes from the input function, as a string. I'll make it an integer, and I'll compare then this variable that I receive from the user if it is the number 1, the integer 1. If that is correct, then the number 1 will be printed. So let me run the code, and then let me type in number 0 first. As you can see, nothing happens after I type number 0, and when I run it again, we get a print of number 1. If I run this again and I type in whatever, then, well, it's asking for me to convert into an integer, so that wasn't a good idea. All right, let me just run this again and type in number 45. Again, it's not equal to number 1, and nothing runs. In case the answer to our statement is negative, like when I type number 45, then we can use the else keyword and execute a second piece of code instead. So when I run this piece of code, you can see that if the answer here on this first if statement is correct, then number 1 will be printed. Otherwise, number 0 will be printed. So when I run the code, let me print 0. And as you can see, the second print statement is run. But then again, when I type in number 45 again, well, I didn't choose number 45, so this is incorrect, right? This program that we're creating, it's printing number 0 when I didn't type in 0. So because of that, if we want to add more conditions to be checked, we can use the elif keyword, which is short for else if. So as you can see here, what I have done is I have the if statement that will run in case this is true. Otherwise, the code is going to check this elif, this second condition in the second question, and it's going to ask, is the number variable not 0 and is the number variable not 1? If this is true, then it's going to print out the invalid number phrase. Otherwise, if it is 0, it is 1, but it's not a 1, then it's going to print 0. So let's run the code. First, number 1, we print out 1. Next, we run again, print out 0, number 0 is printed. And if I try in 45, invalid number. Perfect. With the elif keyword, I can ask many more questions. If none of the questions between if and elif statements are true, no block of code will be executed. So in this example, I'm going to check if all of these conditions are true. First, I'm going to take my input from the console and check if the whatever I type is 1, and then if that's false, I'll move over to 2, and so on and so forth, until I reach the end of this code. If none of these statements are true, nothing is going to happen. So let me try here number 45. Again, nothing is printed. But then again, if I select number 3, then it checks first if the variable number I typed is equal to 1, which is not. Then it checks, then this print code is not run. Then it checks if my variable is equal to 2. It's not, doesn't run this. Checks if the variable I chose is equal to 3, which it is. That's why we printed here on the console the string third. Just on a final note, I can add an else statement and declare that if none of these questions are answered positively, then this block of code will run. And let me just choose number 8, which is outside the scope of these questions, and then we get the invalid number notification. Now let's do a couple of exercises to practice this. Okay, so write a piece of code that takes in the user's height and lets them go in the roller coaster if they are higher than 140 centimeters. So we're gonna build a logic gate with if statements and check if whatever the user is inputting is bigger than or equal to 140. And then in case they are allowed to go to the roller coaster, just print something saying have fun. And then in case they are not allowed to go to the roller coaster, not allowed in. So pause the video now, I'll give it a shot, and I'll show you the solution in a little bit. Okay, so first, let's collect the user's height, and I'm gonna save that in a variable called height. I'm gonna collect the input. Let me write something to the sense of what is your height. And again, because I'm gonna do a math operation later on to check if that is bigger or smaller than 140, I'm just gonna go ahead and convert this into an integer. So now my question is if height is bigger or equal to 140, then colon and indentation, then print this. Otherwise, and however I can say otherwise with the else statement. You might be thinking, well, couldn't I just write in if height is smaller than 140? And you could, but that is definitely the same thing as just writing the else, right? It's either this or smaller, so you don't need to write in the second condition. It's just more work. And when I run the code, my height 173, and I'm allowed in, so have fun. Okay, so now on to the next exercise. Write a program that determines whether a year is a leap year. And there's a hint for you. A leap year is a year that is divisible by 400. It can also be a year that is both divisible by 4 but not divisible by 100. And just as a reminder of the operations you can use the mod operator to get the balance of a division. So for example, 5 divided by 2 would be 2, and there is a remainder of 1. So this operation, this mod operator, will give you the remainder of such division. So you can just use this operation to check whether a number is or is not divisible by another. For example, if you try to get a number to see if it's divisible by 4, well, it's either going to be 4 or 8, 12, so on. 9, for example, is not divisible by 4 because there is going to be a balance at the end of the division. It's not going to be a whole division. So give it a shot, pause the video, and I'll show you the solution in a sec. Okay, so the first thing we got to do is we got to take the user's input. And let me just assign this to a variable that I will name year. And with the input function, let me collect the year. What year are you checking? Oh, and let me just cast this into an integer because we're going to do some math verifications to see if this is bigger or smaller, and I can't do such verifications properly with an integer, with a string, pardon me, which is the result of the input function. So I have to cast it into an integer. So let's do some logic, and let's use some logic to check first if this is a year that's divisible by 400. Okay, leap year is a year divisible by 400. So this checks if a year is the mod of 400. The year mod 400 is 0, meaning there's no balance left from this division. It's a whole division. Then it is a leap year. However, it can also be a year both divisible by 4 and not divisible by 100. So we can check Elif and put in some other conditions. If the year is year mod 4 is 0 and year mod 100 is not 0, then print leap year. Else print not leap year. Okay, so let's run this code. What year am I checking? Let me check 2020 because I know it's a leap year. Okay, let me check 1900, which, oh, sorry. Let me run this again. Let me check 1900, which is not a leap year. And let me check lastly 2020 leap year. So there we go. So we used if, elif, and else to check if this year is a leap year. That was it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.